about how Appy's played that previous game, but it's a new lobby. Maybe we get to see a breath of fresh air.
Yep, exactly. New environment sometimes, the air quality is a little bit better, your thinking's going to be a little bit clearer. Let's see if that's going to be the case as we do take a look at the lobbies, and Appy's is here. This is pretty awesome to see Solus, Emily, DQA, Spicy, Appy's all in this lobby. Wajan Iverson also having a very good day so far. In terms of performance, this lobby should be a good one, as we do see a tank item right now for DQA. I think there's just generally a preference amongst players whether you like to start tanky or offensive on this first item.
Yeah, Belt's still really flexible. It's actually very strong right now in the current metagame because a lot of compositions really want to utilize things like Morellos, or if you're playing an AP comp, it's never bad to really slam a ZZ Rot early. Of course, if you want to play attack speed oriented compositions, the Zeke's Herald is always really good. So I think Belt's very versatile. And I think that's partially what makes it good, but it's less sharp. Sharp is the adjective I use to describe of how powerful your strategy can be when you want to definitively do something. So let's say you're lose streaking. Just belt items are a little bit less good for like snapping that lose streak and going for that win streak compared to when you can combine a bunch of strong offensive items. That being said, pretty solid openers. We have a couple of Astro units, the Jade package. Jade is really good with belts in particular because you give a lot of that repetitive healing and attack speed stacking. So the more durable your units are, the better it'll be. So let's see how DQA is able to navigate this spot. Starting off with the 7th and going with the top finish. He's right there in the mix. We'll see whether or not DQA can follow up, because I think he comes in here with some of the strongest name recognition alongside Solus and Appy's.
Yeah, DQA been very good since before he could vote when it comes to his process here in a TFT. One of the youngest players to find success when the game released, and now, chilling in college, probably playing in his dorm right now, as we got Scorch, Essence Theft, and Combat Training. We actually saw Combat Training do some work with an Olaf comp not too long ago, but we're going to re-roll instead. Wow. Axiomark is pretty good, but what are you seeing, Dan?
I don't know if I agree with what DQA just did. I know that Mage Namzi has definitely taken a little bit of a hit, but Namzi is a mage in this lobby, and he had Essence Theft. That is one of the strongest augments for that composition. It's not that I think that he should be picking that, but it's just one of those things where he actually has the setup for it, and now instead he rerolled and is kind of in an awkward spot. Now, of course, that could not be cohesive with his game plan. So let me walk that back a little bit, Boop, if you'll let me.
Of course.
If he was trying to play, if you looked at those augments and said none of this is pickable, I don't think he's right. But if he's saying, hey, based off my strategy, I want to play a core set of compositions, that's something DQA is known for. He likes playing pretty narrowly, but like focus on 2 to 3 compositions that he is excellent at. Most notably in the recent World Championship that he qualified for, he was playing things like Warwick and Quinn, right, being the reroll challengers. He was very, very good at that composition. So perhaps this is more him saying, I'm going to stick to my style that I am very good at. And you know what? That leads to a lot of good results. And he's a player that's qualified for multiple World Championships, and I'm just here talking about him.
Yeah, exactly. DQA, like you said, has qualified, but has had a little bit of a hard time with that consistency, right? I think a pretty solid 1st or 8th player can end up on top, but can bottom out and kind of just fumble the ball almost when the last couple lobbies come through. And I also want to mention that I think that's why DQA is so good at rolling, is because he does play narrowly, and he's really good at spotting those narrow comps that he needs. That is a Lux 2 at 2-2 on this Astral comp with 3 mages already. We actually haven't seen a ton of Lux so far, Dan, but it was a unit that you did mention in the pregame.
Hold on. We just talked about Essence Theft and mages and how I think it's actually a pretty solid line. We switched POVs, and look what Kevy Joe has. My man, Kevy Joe. Oh, all right. I already know who I'm rooting for this game. Oh, thank goodness. I felt like I was an idiot for that 1 second, but this also could have been a possibility where Kevy picked it, DQA scouted, saw he was contested, and rather trying to play that line and say, you know what, someone else claimed it first, I'm going to go ahead and play something else, which, is actually quite a solid move if that ends up being the case. And look, we don't have the players scouting POV specifically, so we can't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure these players are at that level to be able to recognize that.
I completely agree with you. There are a lot of times, and some players that just don't like playing comps that are contested. One of my good friends, Crowan, was really kind of one of those mono comps that was like, hey, let's get that tier 3 unit, and I'll be the only one playing it. I think Duelist in the past was a lot like that as well. So this is pretty fun. We're going to have that pretty great front line to start off thing, because HP is one of the most valuable resources, maybe the most valuable resource in the early game, and we've got good items for this too if we want to. We got some flexibility.
Yeah, so this is actually a spot where Kevito can think about going to level 5 and playing 5 Astral. I know it's kind of weird because he's be losing the mages, but it kind of depends on what his goals are, right? So there's two approaches that you can take to this composition. One is to actually just reroll Lux. So you play a normal curve, and it seems like Kevito is going to favor that. The other is to push tempo, try to get to 7, and play Namzi mages, reroll Namzi when you get to like 8, maybe go to 9 and play multiple copies of Zoe. Now, that was the previous iteration of the comp. Mages has since gotten nerfed. The meta has since shifted. I'm not even sure if that's necessarily viable. I haven't got the spot to play for it myself because the patch has been out for a few days. But it looks like Kevy Joe is going to at least lean into what traditionally people think is strong with the recent buffs to Lux, with the fact that backline access is really powerful, and add to the fact that units like Lux have good matchups into some of the meta comps like Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa is always going to be the back furthest corner unit. Lux will always target her. I think Kevy Joe is well positioned. He has really strong economy, and his augment's really good.
I 100% agree with you, and I'm excited to see this Lux kind of throw bombs into the back line here. You do have to get it, but we're already at that tier 2 really early on, and with Astrals, it's going to help us get there. And so that comp is very obviously going to keep going that AP direction into the late game. I wonder what like the ultra late game might look like for that comp, but we'll get there when we get there. But in this particular carousel, we had Soul Reaver picking first, and we're riding along with Solus, who's currently in 9th place. Pretty good position so far, as we already have some Lagoons in the front line, or one Lagoon with that Malphite, and a Nidalee as well with Prep.
Yeah, so preparation, really strong of an augment. It has recently got it adjusted in the previous patch. Instead of starting off with 0 stacks of preparation and waiting 4 rounds, you get 1 stack immediately, but the trade-off is you get less power, so less stats for your champions. And right now, Solus is doing it correctly. He's actually been able to get the best of both worlds, where he's 1, EQing up because he's playing Astrals, 2, he's prepping his units, and 3, he's win streaking. So everything is going really well for Solus. He also has 2 Kaisas ready to go. If he hits a Kaisa 2, and he's able to get this Lagoon online very firmly, Solus has one of the strongest possible openers currently in the game, which is transferring a win streak econ trait into another econ win streak trait, and then gives him the opportunity to either go for a fast level 9 and play dragons, or just stay on it, reroll for Kaisa 3 with preparation stacks, and be way stronger ahead of the curve.
You know, and one thing about Prep that I noticed when I was watching you play it, right, it's just so good against mirror matchups, right? You just have better stats than the person across from you. Say you have a Malphite Silas frontline, both tier 2, tier 1, the prepped ones are going to be better in terms of those stats. Of course, you have to think about other augments, but in this first section, that is definitely going to be the case. A lot of uneven preparation on the board right now. Once we do tier 2, some of these units, those will transfer on to the board, but you're already seeing Lux. I mean, she was taking, 4 hits per cast pretty much on that. So once that power level really starts to increase, those aren't just going to be, little nibbles of damage. They're going to be complete, health bar KOs at this point. As we have a guild Ezreal here, another very strong early game start. We have 3 swift shots, it looks like, on this board. But, I mean, what Solus is running right now is just so strong.
He's strong. If he's able to 5 streak here, that's huge. Emily does have Guildcrest, which is actually quite durable in the early game. It might not feel like Guildcrest makes that big of an impact, but you can already see a lot of extra healing for the entire team. It's kind of like getting 2 augments in 1, and this win is devastating for Solus. Not able to get it done. Emily able to play a spoiler. Okay, devastating is probably a little bit too extreme. It is very annoying, though, as DQ8 does end as the sole win streaker in stage 2. So we hop on board with Soul Reaver and see what's up with him.
Yeah, a tier 2 Lux probably wins that, by the way. One of the better, kind of final units there. You'll see a lot of Kaisa versus Lux at the end as we do move over to Soul Reaver, as we see something pretty similar to what we've already been seeing in Astral Opener.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do have one person playing Guild, kind of implying they're going to play more of that Deja or AP Dragon line. We have this player, Soul Reaver, who has Cluttered Mind, who is keeping 3 spots open on the bench. This is traditionally the way you set up for PvE rounds, because if you do get a drop, you can get up to 3. Gets a Lagoon Dragon, get the Somm. Not really what he needed there. He's going to have to buy out the shop to try and maximize that EXP gain. So another person looking to fast 8/fast 9. We do have mages in the lobby, and we have Solus, who's playing Preparation, likely to reroll. So had the lobby kind of already very clearly defined what they're going to do. This spot for Soul Reaver, though, is borderline illegal. 5 Astral, almost fully upgraded, has 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 is the big cutoff because at 8 Astral, which is the sum of the stars on the board, you can start getting item components. So very, very good setup there for Soul Reaver. And we'll see whether or not Soul Reaver can, start to get together some wins because they are at 76 HP. But I can't imagine they're going to take very heavy losses here.
Yeah, the other thing about the Astral you have to remember, too, is that the AP differential, too, gets better once you have more in there, and that's where that Lux does get better itself. And it does seem like Heavy is moving that direction, especially with that Shojins. And even though it doesn't seem like a ton of damage, it is enough to maybe tickle someone down for someone else to get the final hit. But a Lux 3, or once we do get more Astrals, should be good. This should be a triple snare here, and could you imagine if that actually CC'd you? Is this Lux going to be able to take the dub here? Who's she going to... Oh, no, barely leaves the Olaf alive. Taking that down, I think that probably still would have been a 1-unit loss, but it's going to be 2 instead as we move over to Appies, and we get, I think, our first Prismatic augment of the day.
Appies is playing scoped weapons with Warriors. My first immediate reaction was to reroll, but he's going to go for Lucky Gloves and get an immediate TG. Oh, he's a glove on the bench, so he can play for 2 Lucky Gloves. And that's okay. That's pretty strong, I think. I think Lucky Gloves is a really fun augment. Hats off to the design team. I think second of it is that it's also an augment that I think a lot of high-level players underrate. I think that it's really strong tempo, but I think the problem is because the trade-off is that it's prismatic. That being said, it won't matter unless Appies is hitting these upgrades. He is playing what looks like to be a scale scorn variation of the comp. He's not going to play the Yone reroll. A lot of people have been favoring the Yone because, one, there's been a lot of 2-cost rerollers, so it's easier to get Yone too. And also because of the way that the lobby lines up is from pretty good matchups, and Yone is quite strong. Does miss the Zephyr onto the Itis, which would have been a huge way to punish the opponents. So Appies, just a little bit unfortunate that he's not able to line that up, but his comp is so strong, I can't really expect Appies to be losing much. And if he can get Olaf too, he can get into a good spot. Appies does have a recipe to make a solid top finish and potentially pull himself back in this tournament.
I agree. And the one thing about this Olaf, too, is it's going to have that range with the RFC, so you're going to be able to keep it a little safer and hopefully position and move away from the tanks that are going to kind of eat our damage, as we've seen a lot of Brahms in the last moments of a round, and that Brahm gets 2 kills before it goes down. That is a great double kill there for Emily's Brahm. That's going to help a lot of HP get saved. You're seeing her at 90 right now, and then a pretty precipitative drop right under that for 4th place for Spicy Appies, looking at the rest of the lobby as we are shifting our Shimmer Scale items. One of these items, I think that's the Mogul's Mail, will be really nice on the Itis, and the other one that does turn into Diamond Hands is something that a lot of people will wait until the unit's almost dead to slap on right when it happens, because you can lose a round, and that can be brutal for you if you're expecting a champion duplicator and some gold.
Yeah, well, the idea is we got it early enough, so I think regardless of whether or not you feel like Diamond Hands will be useful later, again, I'm a little bit unclear whether or not it is I think it's the 5 Shimmer, because we see other people with Moguls, but not the Diamond Hands, or the Determined Investor, rather. Mm-hmm. Either way, a pretty good setup here for Wage and Iverson, just racking up a lot of gold. This Kaisa is very competitive, even if he's not winning fights. As you see, comes down to like 1 or 2 units a lot of times, although Solus, on the other hand, is trying to punish is Vlad getting in the face and being able to absorb some of the damage. And this is one of the weaknesses of Kaisa. She doesn't have many, but she has a couple, and one of them is if there's enough targets absorbing her missiles, then her title surge doesn't actually get a lot of executes or actually killing champions. So a nice job there from Solus, and you see why he's at 94 HP. He has a very strong board.
Just taking a gander at the rest of these prismatic augments, I actually think that Celestial Blessing Jewel Lotus combo can be huge in the late game. We actually saw that Kaisa maybe take an extra unit down because of that Celestial Blessing 3. That's going to be very, very nice for those units, particularly a unit like Kaisa with that tick damage. You're going to get that HP a little bit better and more confidently as we leave the Graves on the carousel. We're back over right along with DQA, the kind of wunderkind of TFT in its early stages. And we got somebody you used to know in the corner there.
That's right. Well, let's take a look at his spot, because he did start off with Heroic Presence, a Guardian-centric composition. Usually when you play Heroic Presence, you're thinking a lot about an AP dragon in the back. I wasn't thinking about Lagoon, I'll admit that. I feel like Deja makes a lot more sense because you can play Itis, Rakan, Deja, or even around 4 Guardians. So, Leona is obviously a Mirage Guardian. With Lagoon in particular, the big downside of Lagoon is rolling, or rather, the big downside of his current situation, he's rolling at 7. And the comp kind of gets everything really online around level 8. That being said, the setup is good. He has Blue Battery 2, so he doesn't need to get 2 tiers. Instead, can prioritize maximum damage onto the Sohm. But it just feels like Lagoon needs a lot of things to go right. And another thing to add insult to injury, DQA's Lagoon stack situation is not great either, so he's going to be under-resourced relative to where a lot of Lagoon players are usually at.
Oh my goodness, Gold Collector onto that Ezreal. That's going to be absolutely insane near the late game, even if we transfer it onto some other units, maybe a Dragon, if you will, as we move over back to this board. I think this is our first Neela that we've even seen on a bench so far. Warmogs will probably stay on the Zac for now, maybe go onto the Itis, as we do find another Zac to replace it. But this is super interesting how, we couldn't keep that pair, right? And wait, we had to sell that to get the Warmogs onto the Itis. Now we have the Mogul's Mail. That's going to be a little bit better as well.
It's really weird, right? We have 3 Mage, 5 Lagoon, 2 Dragon, but this looks like DQA is slowly but surely trying to edge his way over to playing potentially like a Deja setup there. But again, it's awkward, and maybe if he hits Sohm 2, he's just going to ride with Sohm 2, level to 8, and play 8-6 Lagoon, and we're having this impromptu makeshift board, which is honestly kind of cool. You don't really see Sohm play with other dragons very commonly, and so this is a really interesting line here from DQA. I kind of hope it works out, because I'd love to see some variety for Sohm, because usually you just kind of play Lagoon or bust.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that maybe they're trying to push it into more of a Deja vibe, where you can kind of put the backliner in there, get backline access, get the Sohm into some damage. But I think right now Deja is just better at all of that, more consistent. So we'll see what happens here as we move over to Emily. Once again, we've moved the Guild Crest over to the Xayah, which was always going to happen. And so this is going to be a Xayah Guild comp right now. A lot of people came into this tournament saying that they liked Xayah, but we haven't actually seen a ton of it. Pretty much just won a lobby.
Yeah, this is another variation you could play with Guildcrest, which is just playing the Guild Xayah, just like a pure Guild Xayah, and allowing the stats from Guild to carry your tempo to be really high, and you still have a lot of powerful late game options. You can even still pivot into Dragons from this spot. It's a little bit less likely. It does have a Deja appear in the shop, but with the last Whisper Slam, almost certainly not going to be leaning towards it. Prior to this patch, the most common way to play Guildcrest was to put the Guildcrest onto Deja directly, find a Bard, and then you realize that basically Deja has every stat that she could ever want, be able to be very stable on just a Zippy 2, and as well as a 1-star Deja. Not going to be the case here. Checking in on Wajan Iverson, it looks like. It does find an Itis 2 at 6. Very good. This is very improbable. In fact, this does not look like a level 6 shop whatsoever.
Yeah, this is like a level 8 shop that you're seeing on the board right now. Not only do we have an Itis, we still have the champion duplicator on the bench. So that was a natty Itis 2 with an extra Itis in the shop just for fun, I guess. So that Itis is going to be super tanky. You're already seeing it right now. The Ezreal isn't the weakest thing in the world. Should Collector it here in a second, and it does. But Itis is what time, and what do backliners like is that time. So Kai'Sa and Itis need to get along in order to make this happen, and it was just enough for this round.
Yeah, Wajan Iverson, pretty decent spot to that Kai'Sa 3. We approach our last augment. So Emily does have Xayah. She could think about whether she wants to play around Tantrum. Tantrum is kind of the little brother to Scorch. Scorch gets all the spotlight because true damage is cool. So I don't think Tantrum is particularly very strong, especially if she's playing a guild setup. Has the opportunity to pick between Celestial Blessing, which is a really strong augment itself, but also Stand United and Sunfire board. She does have Sunfire Cape, so eliminates the need for anti-heal. And Celestial Blessing is just generically good to be able to keep herself very healthy. So I think this is totally fine. I think Stand United in general is just less and less popular these days. Just because I feel like a lot of people would rather be able to have more sustain in these fights. That's hence why Gunblade's really strong.
Yeah.
But I think I can't really falter on this choice here. I think it's very solid.
Definitely like a vanilla augment, right? It doesn't have like the fancy toppings on it. And so the other thing about this that I think is really cool is that the Celestial and the Guild Crest for the Xayah actually work really well together along with Cybernetic Implants. So this is actually a lot tankier than you might notice when it comes to these units. I'm curious to see how, we got full health there on the pullback on the Feathers. We just need some more attack speed, I think. The Last Whisper, though, seems to be a nice pickup, especially since we do see these itises on the board, because, it seems like the Convergence got the itis right now,
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this was kind of a little bit of a punish for not picking Stand United. She lacks damage, and when you have units like Itis 2 this early into the game, it's a pure stat check. And so she did not have enough damage. She only has Last Whisper and Guild Emblem, doesn't have Rage Blade, doesn't have, like, a lot of that big power. She does have Cybernetic Implants, so there is some damage there, but you can kind of just see, like, how strong these mega tanks are. And so, Emily's doing okay so far. She's trying to fast 8, reasonably healthy at 62. And just kind of right there in the middle of the pack. So we'll see how level 8 goes as we pivot to the other Guild Emblem board. You kind of called out the Ezreal 2. Ezreal 2, very versatile, can hold any assortment of items. And on the other side, DQA does end up paying that Sohm 2. Did go for a fast 8. We'll see if this works out for him, because, again, it's a pretty unusual combination, but I kind of love what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I love what I'm seeing, too. I think the question is, are we going to move these items to an Ao Shin later, maybe? Because this is working out just fine right now with the Sohm. Not even, still in the shield status right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is a 6-unit win. And we have a second guild comp as well. And what's interesting is, like, it's not necessarily, like, a contested comp versus what Emily is doing, because her carry is totally different at the moment. As we move over to Basso right now, what his augments look like right now. Cybernetic, Guild Crown, and Portable Forge were the 3. And so a lot of good itemization, and itemization is really good because, again, you get to keep those stats. It's not a dead augment, and because you have that item. But we're entering the next stage of our game at 4-5, right? People are going to be looking at 8, potentially trying to see how fast they can get to 9, and we've entered the late game.
This is one of the most tame prismatic lobbies I think I've seen this set. No one really has like a high-end shopping, a level up, or even some of the other econ augments that people really use to get really far ahead economically. I guess the closest would be Kevijo, who has Golden Ticket, who did hit Lux 3 finally, kind of on curve. Solus with the Malphite 3. Okay, I wasn't exactly expecting a 3-star of Malphite 3 this late into the game, but hey, we take those.
Yeah, at this point, it's more rare to get the Malphite 3 than like a 3 cost. At this point, you're finding more Olafs at this point than that. As we do have a Xayah 2 now, that is a big upgrade, along with the Bard. So we have the Mystics to help us out now as well. Not a ton of attack speed. The natty attack speed buff for Xayah for tier 2 seems to be enough right now. Hasn't really been threatened, and this is why we talk about Lux. This is why we talk about backline access, because just Xayah's been untouched so far in this round.
Yes, and very, very slight buffs to Xayah's traits. Rage Wing, for example, and the Switch Shot previous patch was able to get some love, but nothing too impactful. It's just Xayah's in a really solid spot. Speaking of solid spots, we talked about how Soul Reaver was trying to go for level 9. He's leveling 9 at 4-6.
Crazy.
Which is a little bit earlier than I anticipated, but he has so much gold, has Ao Shin, but he's not prepping, so he would love to have pairs. And I think that's why he wants to go for it. Hits an Ao Shin 2 at 4-6. All right. But here's the thing. He is playing a preparation 3, and if all he's playing is a prep 1 stack, he's basically down 3/4 of a prismatic at this point. So let's see if this is enough. The raw power should be enough to win this fight. Ao Shin, if he's able to cast and get things off, will be in a good spot because it has enough power to wipe everything on this board. And Emily just doesn't have the DPS to be able to keep up. So that's going to be a win. Heavy Jones taking another loss, barely living at 1 HP. We almost had another player eliminated before Treasure Dragon. As we get to see what's the final touches people are going to add to their composition.
This is one of those situations, I think, that really tests the good players, right? Do you just leave the Ao Shin on the desk, on the bench for prep stacks, right? Because you need it for that. You have the HP. You could technically get 1 or 2, even if you lose those rounds and then put it in. But that is something that you got to think about. Great upgrade there for that front line. But with the Luxes and the Xayahs, I don't know if the Terras are going to be as valuable. But the Shroud of Stillness, I believe, is what that is going to wipe pretty much the whole board when it comes to mana. And we have the Remover to move it around for the next round as well.
Yeah, and Soul Reaver also has that Soraka, so it's an opportunity for him to climb back. A couple other people hitting. Kevy Joe, 3-star Silas. So now we get to witness whether or not this Lux build is for real. Kevy Joe has the Jewel Gauntlet and the Infinity Edge and 7 mages. This is the variation that you can play if you do end up having a lot of high base AP, and 7 mages does give you that. On paper, this comp is actually quite fearsome. I like the build coming out from Kevy. I kind of wonder what's been going wrong in his camp. It could be that he just hit his upgrades quite late. We just saw him hit Lux 3, and we also saw him hit that Silas 2. And what's scary is that players like Soul Reaver are in his pool. Solus hit Kaisa 3 and Jax 3. Soul Reaver has that Aushin 2. DQA is streaking. And Soul Reaver's on the other side. And I don't think this Lux is correctly angled either, but we did at least dodge the Shroud.
Yeah, we did dodge the Shroud, so we can go home at least with one victory. Let's see if we're going to get a round victory for this one. You're already seeing how much more damage that Lux is able to do. Almost takes out the Aushin in the backline. Finally does do it. Doesn't do it in time. That is going to be an elimination for Kevy Joe in 8th place. That was looking like it could potentially go somewhere. We don't get to see the Lux anymore, which is a little unfortunate, but we are going to see, I believe we have 2 Kaisa 3s in this lobby right now.
I'm actually pretty surprised. I would love to see Joe's game back, because I've seen a lot of players from the Chinese server succeed with that build and that variation. So a lot of things probably went wrong for Kevy. But hey, that's just kind of the way tournaments go sometimes. Even if things feel like the stars are aligning, a lot of other people are trying to prep their strategies. I mean, just look at this prep player, Solus, who has 3-star Jax, 3-star Malphite, 3-star Kaisa, working on 3-star Zac as well. And if you can get all these things in order, Solus has some of the highest cap in the game. But will he be able to survive? Because one of the big downsides of Solus Spot is that he is relatively low on HP compared to where he would like to be.
Oh man, Kaisa avoiding the breath of Shyvana. So that's going to be nice and healthy to go for a couple of these other ultimates. The Kaisa seems to be just okay. Let's see what this pullback does. And the Xayah falls. However, this isn't over just yet. We do have a collector, and we are going to use it. So Twitch, that sneaky little rat, is able to win that round against a very nice prepped board.
Soul Reaver ended up losing as well, by the way. So the Cap Dragon board is not nearly doing as well. Solus did hit that Zac 3. So again, a couple of powerful people getting even stronger. DQA, by the way, fantastic recovery. Really cool vintage DQA moment where just you would think that you haven't figured out, and all of a sudden he whips out something that surprises you. A lot of people kind of meme on him for being a player that sometimes just kind of sticks to the basics, but he is more than capable when his back is against a wall to kind of come up with something like this. And that's why he is a 2-time world championship finalist in that regard. As he's going up against Wage and Iverson, who does have that 3-star Kaisa frontline to try to target the mage. This is specifically to counter DQA. And the Soma is staying alive for a long time, but not able to get that final double cast to wipe off. So this is big damage to DQA. And now we're starting to see the Kaisa boards get online and wreak havoc in the lobby.
These Kaisa boards, and there's 2 of them that already got to tier 3, so it's not even like there could be any more. These boards are already capped out. We haven't really seen the Kaisas until stage 6 before, and we got 2 in stage 4 this time around. Dragon Carousel. This is a big moment, Dan. This can really change everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Soul Reaver has most of the upgrades. So he's going to look for something straight up for Terra. Ends up picking for a Warmog. DQA going for utility to try to improve placements. Emily going for a little bit more DPS. Looks like she actually just took it for the raw Shyvana. And then Solus being able to get some pretty good support for his composition. Another play that's been very quiet under the radar of this game is Spicy Apples. We just saw him lose to the Ghost of Wage and Iverson, but he's kind of right there in the mix, and I kind of worry if whether or not Prismatic Labs are just going to outscale him. But some players are leveling up. We see Solus finally at the end of stage 5 going to level 7, been rolling forever, and that's kind of the nature of being contested. You have to be comfortable being way under leveled relative to these players who rushed for 9. That's a Soraka 2, which I think is worth making, only because it might come down to the HP difference in this game. If he's able to heal an additional 1 over that Soraka, I think that might make the difference of a placement.
So this was exactly, if you remember, what DQA did last game, and you know what happened? He won. So let's see if it's going to be the same situation. He did get down to about 16 HP and ended with almost 30. It looks like the lineups here are actually pretty good for our mages, but I don't know if there's enough damage being done to the Olaf. Do we have a Morello's? Do we have something that has hurt the healing? It doesn't look like we do. And so it's all about this Sohm right now, and that's never going to win against that Olaf. And so we do take another loss, but that's going to be the last one we can take in the lobby.
Yeah, well, he could theoretically heal up with Soraka to get 3 life
That's right.
at 12 and then barely take a loss, but you're right. He's effectively at 1 HP. And it's difficult because he doesn't have many options, and this is one of the downsides of the Lagoon composition. It's very fun. It's actually one of the most fun economic traits they've ever printed, especially just based off the way the water explosions happen. But it is fairly narrow in terms of your late game options. You don't really get that many techs. In fact, the best thing that DK can do is probably find another Zoe 2 and play it in some capacity. Actually, he's actually stuck on Zoe 1, so doesn't even have that option. And we'll see who's on the other side. It's Solus, who finally has everything online.
Wow, lots of shrouds. Everyone pretty much getting tagged. 4 gold there. Let's see if DQA is going to be able to use it at any given point. But the Kai'Sa can get vulnerable because of this Sohm. However, does avoid the Lux ult from the Zoe. The Kai'Sa does get CC'd, and Sohm does not want to ult it in the back line. This is going to be it right here and right now. Will it be enough? And it is. Wow. DQA takes down Solus in what I believe were some of the worst Kai'Sa ults I have ever seen. In that round. I mean, it didn't seem like it did anything.
Zoe is just a hell of a unit. She was able to cast Janna's Tornado and then was able to utilize Ivern's Daisy. Like, just at very clutch moments. And the thing about Dragonmancer comps is that they do get wiped up in AoE very easily because they're not the carries. They're all just kind of supporting cast to the main hyper carry that is whoever your Dragonmancer hero is. And so they get swept up very easily by that giant crit build from DQA. Yeah, DQA is able to kind of target on Kai'Sa, and we kind of had that strength in numbers thing. Remember, we talked about how spreading out against Kai'Sa will make that ultimate hit a lot weaker, and that tidal burst is not able to get it done. Checking out Spicy Appies. Appies trying to look for revenge. Is number 1 in HP right now. Does have this Olaf 3. Finds an upgrade on Silas 2, which means his comp's pretty much done. Does have the ability to kind of tech in and out. Probably wants something better than this the Seraphine for now, but is the only thing that you can get. Emily Wang out in 7th, and that is to the benefit of Basso skills. That means Shyvana is available for Basso skills, who did get it. So we were able to get that GOU2 as well. Who's on the other side of Spicy Appies? He needs to win this one to guarantee himself a top 4.
Oh my goodness, 17 HP. Solus could lose a lot here. How good is this Olaf gonna be? Is on the tankiest unit right now. That's best case scenario right now. We do get some gold to pop. The Volibear is starting to spread that Shiv, or Stiletto, I believe, and get to that 25 stacks, but it's all Kai'Sa all the time. Kai'Sa feels like it can be losing, and then all of a sudden brings it right back up, but that is going to be a 6-unit loss, eliminating Solus in 5th place. Soul Reaver loses the tie, it seems like, as DQA sneaks into 4th with 5 HP. I also want to mention that we've got Rascal's Glove and the Prismatic Lucky Gloves augment, and that's always going to be really nice.
The Lucky Gloves on the Rascal's Gloves was absolutely bananas. It gave Radiant Dragonclaw and Radiant Redemption, which is probably the 2 best item combinations you could possibly get in that situation, and he was on the correct side positioning-wise. Well done to Appies. A pinch of good luck finally falls his way. He's able to capitalize. However, this is the 2nd time in a row going with DQA. He has gotten punished by the Zephyr. But last time, we saw him able to run over anyways. And once more, this Pantheon has Dragon's Claw against an AP carry, and it's not going to go down without a fight. And Olaf is starting to ramp up with the Rage Blade, able to finally get to the front line. If he can get access to the back line, this fight is over. Pantheon just trying to hold on one last second for an Aegis Assault. And now it's Olaf versus the world. And the Kayle intervention comes in, which is a crushing blow. Once more, Zoe comes to the saving grace of DQA. How does he do it?
Oh my goodness, amazing call, Frodan. That was so entertaining to watch. I love that this Sohm is starting to, I mean, we can say it's popped off at this point. We're in 4th place, and we have Soraka HP remaining pretty much. So all of that has fed into this top 4, and DQA, even from, when his first started has always been like this. You'll see DQA like kind of bottom out and then just slowly but surely hang on and then win a lobby like we're seeing right now. But let's talk about Basso skills, because that's who we're riding along with right now. We do have a pretty good Shyvana. They did get shrouded, but it doesn't really matter for that unit. It just delays the ultimate. Sometimes it actually makes it better. But we have now guaranteed crit on this Sohm. This is probably one of the strongest Sohms that you can see. And these Kale ults from the Zoe seem to be coming at literally the perfect time every time.
Oh!
Right?
1,500 crit damage, just eliminated everything. DQA is on a rampage, eliminating Basso skills in 4th place. And that's kind of what Zyacomp is going to do without having a really strong setup. Seems like you just kind of play for that top 3, top 4. Let's take a look at the stage 6 carousel. DQA has another mage cap. He's going for it.
Oh, yes! All right, so the DQA not even tapped out yet. We can even get even stronger, pick any unit that we like at this point, and put that double cast on them. This is a super cool comp. I didn't think we'd see anything like this, to be honest with you. Going into today, I thought Sohm was going to be the dragon we would see the least at you, because you only really see it in Lagoon, but DQA changing the game right now as we speak, right in front of our eyes.
Okay, but Wage and Iverson just got a Mirage Emblem Yasuo on Carousel, which gave him Yasuo 2. Has Diamond Hands on Yasuo. The Mirage is electric, which, is not bad, actually. You could actually put the Mirage Emblem onto Itis and Mogul Mail the Yasuo. It's actually a completely valid way you can utilize this. Although, I'm sure you could probably put on a bunch of other champions and be fine. But Itis is the tankiest and has Ionic Spark, which actually synergizes with the electric magic damage. So a lot of things kind of going right here for Wage and Iverson. Going to show you why Kai'Sa is one of the most feared compositions top end. You have so many 3-stars kind of available in the lobby. And yet, it seems like Kai'Sa, the 2-cost, is going to reign supreme. Diamond Hands is one of the mortal enemies of the single target damage. He's going to stall for a long time. And there's just way too much stuff here for Olaf. Appies with a very nice third. DQA with an even better top 2 guaranteed. There's no way he goes beyond negative 16. It's not a double kill, so we're going to have a final showdown. But can DQA do anything to this unstoppable Kai'Sa comp?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think DQA has already proven himself, right, with this comp. This comp seemed like it was literally going to get eliminated for the last 5 rounds, right? And we're here in the top 2 against Wage and Iverson, who has had a wonderful day today overall. So let's see who is going to reign supreme. Is it going to be DQA or Wage and Iverson? We're going to keep the Mogul's Mail and the Radiant Warmogs on the Itis. That single target damage was what took down Spicy Appies. Now that we're going up against DQA, it is a very different situation. We've got the Soraka with the Mage Cap. We got all that crit on the Sohm. We just got to make sure we hit it onto the Kai'Sa, but the real hidden MVP has been the Zoe and those Kale ults, so definitely look at that. Kai'Sa not taking that much damage just yet, but does get CC'd. Is DQA going to be able to survive another round? No, as it looks like the backline does get vulnerable. And in this situation, Kai'Sa has too much HP. It doesn't seem like it is going to work. But honestly, DQA played an amazing lobby in just that point. And a 2nd place is almost a victory, I think, with that comp. So, Dan, I know we loved that. Do you have any other comments on what we just saw?